Crysis 3. Just completed it. What's up with the game? So, Crysis 3 starts off pretty much, not directly after, but years and years forward from, I guess, when the end of Crysis 2 was. And, you know, something I just want to say about the Crysis series, ever since, like, you know, they announced Crysis 3 and they showed gameplay, the story makes no sense. It doesn't. And the game, at the end of Crysis 3, they do this weird thing where you're just like, what? It doesn't make sense. And it's just, the whole story of the game just doesn't make sense. For those of you who played the first Crysis, great game, alright? And still to this day, my favorite Crysis game out of all of them, out of the whole series, is the first Crysis. You know, the ending of the first Crysis ends like there's going to be a sequel continuing right after where the first one left off. And, you know, in Crysis 2, as years forward, you see Prophet kill himself, and then at the end of Crysis 2, your character Alcatraz assumes the role of Prophet. In Crysis 3, Prophet is somehow back. And I understand, like, at the end of Crysis 2, his memories and I guess his whole conscience and everything was stored in the nano system, the nano suit. But isn't that technically still supposed to be Alcatraz, the character from the second game? Because Prophet killed himself. He's done. His memories, his conscience is the only thing that remains, and it's embedded in the suit. So why, with this logic, do we have Prophet returning as the main character, who is the same voice actor as the guy who played him in all the other previous Crysis games? It makes no sense to me. And I watched this video that previously on the Crysis, you know, games where they pretty much condensed it all, you know, telling you basically what the story was. And you know what they say? Prophet, they somehow try to justify that Prophet, the conscience of Prophet, takes over people's bodies and, like, assumes the role of someone else. It's like the weirdest thing. It's like, what? His soul, his conscience, his memories take over a person's mind, and now he assumes the role of that person. What? It makes no sense at all. I have no idea what's going on with this story. And at the end of Crysis 3, I still had no idea what was going on. Why is he here? He killed himself. And you tried to say, oh, he killed the body of someone, but his memories, his conscience is still in the suit. And what, he takes over people's bodies? And he can project his voice through someone? And at the end of Crysis 3, they show Prophet. They do. They show how he is, now that him and the nanosuit are one. They show how he is, you know, basically how he looks like, how he's living his life at the very end of Crysis 3. And it's like, what? It makes no sense. I don't know how they dug themselves in a hole so deep in terms of just confusion and storyline. I just have no idea. So I just wanted to put that out there straight out, that the story of Crysis 3 is completely dismissed because of what happened with the second game. And you don't get like a real satisfying conclusion as to why everything is what it is. So really, I was disappointed in that factor. I thought the story was going to give a lot more, you know? I really did. Surprisingly, however, if you can get past all those confusing choices that they made with the story and the character, what's under there is actually a pretty decent sci-fi storyline. And what's going on is that the game returns back to New York, which was really a weird decision in my in my mind. I don't. Why would you go back to the same place? You know, it's. I don't know why the developers tried to do that, but they went. You go back to New York, and this is a different kind of New York from the second one. The second one was a very good representation of what actually New York was, and it was more post-apocalyptic New York. In this one, everything's been overgrown with vegetation, and the cell's now taken over. And let me just get this straight out of the way. You don't feel like you're in New York when you're playing Crysis 3. You don't feel like you're in the same place. So they did handle it well with respect to how they designed their levels, alright? Even though it still takes place in New York, you don't feel like you're in New York at all. You feel like you're in this lush tropical jungle. In fact, I'm actually really proud to say this, but you actually feel like this is a true Crysis experience. The levels are huge, the draw distance is massive. It really feels like it has that size and scalability of like the first Crysis, combined with the sort of the environments and the structure and the whole gameplay of Crysis 2, and it works really well in that respect. I wouldn't say that the levels are so, pretty and as open as the first Crysis was, but they're open enough to the point where there's plenty of room to explore, and they're just huge. They are massive, alright? Now, and I'm really happy to report that, because Crysis 2 is disappointing in the fact that it took the more linear route, and it went for a more story-based kind of structure, which is fine, and I really enjoyed Crysis 2, but still, what made Crysis was the fact that you had this almost open-world environment, or at least it felt like that. And Crysis 3, it really does kind of feel like that. So they do a really good job there. They have seamless cutscenes, which are really nice, and I'll talk about the graphics later, because, wow. The story so far is the Cell had built this nanodome around the whole New York, and basically the Cell took control over the whole city of New York, and there's the aliens that you eradicated in the second game. It turns out you wake them up. Okay, you wake up this thing called the Alpha Ceph, and it's the type of alien. He's like in charge of everything. It's basically the mainframe of everything. All right, is the Alpha Ceph, the queen more or less of the beehive. You wake this thing up, and it sends an invasion. Basically, it starts a whole new invasion. And creates this teleporter, this whole tunnel that goes from the Ceph homeworld and our homeworld. So it's a complete tunnel, and basically the story is you have to stop the Alpha Ceph before all the Ceph come from their homeworld and start invading the whole planet and basically make the human race extinct. Alright? On paper that sounds a little bit generic, but it's handled in a way that it focuses purely on action. And surprisingly, at times, due to excellent character development, it's pretty emotional, Psycho returns. He was a character from the first Crysis, and he also had his own side game called Crysis Warhead, one of another really excellent Crysis game. And he returns, and basically he's really emotionally disturbed because the Cell basically captured him, and they put him in this skinning lab, and they tore his nanosuit off of his body, more or less. They stole his nanosuit, and it was a very painful experience for him. And you can tell, he feels like naked without his nanosuit. He keeps saying, "Oh, I'm only human. I can't do anything." He's going through this sort of depression, And Psycho's a real badass, He has that whole mentality of, "I'm gonna fuck shit up," And that's one of the great things about that character is that he's that really tough guy, but he also has that soft side to him. And I saw in Crysis Warhead, you saw a lot of that, and in Crysis 3, it's the same thing. He really has that soft side. As well as still being able to be the badass that he is. And I think he's an excellent character. He's well developed in Crysis 3, and he's a great addition. It's great to see him back. They do just an excellent job. So he basically, he brings his team in. He's formed with this group who's trying to stop the Ceph and basically stop the Ceph invasion from coming at the same time. So you're kind of, you're kind of on the malicious side here, and you're fighting on enemy territory. In terms of level design, these are beautiful levels. Like the way they structure them and everything. Some are huge and open. Some have lots of buildings where you can just go anywhere you want. And then there's others. There's this one level where it has grass, like literally grass as tall as that door, and you can't see where you're going at times. It's like you're just walking, and it's just you don't know where you're going, and you're being hunted at the same time. So it's this weird sense. It's this really interesting, but just this awesome sense of, these guys can come out at any moment, and you really gotta kind of trust your instincts and really pay attention to the world around you, because I mean, even though it may look open, within seconds you can get flooded with enemies. So great level design there, and in terms of graphical detail, which the Crysis series is known for pushing the boundaries of graphics, setting that graphical standard in games. And Crysis 3, I'm happy to report, is the best looking game I have ever seen. These are the best, the most highly detailed character models of any game I've ever seen. There's this one scene, this one cutscene, and all the cutscenes are done in the in-game engine. And this guy's literally taking a look at you, and he comes up to you like this, all right? And you get to see a full outline of his face. They have every explicit detail running from the little dots and stuff and wrinkles on your skin. Like, I'm talking like the real, like, up close personal detail, to the point where the eyelashes and everything. It's all just done pinpoint accurate. If you guys saw the PlayStation 4 Quantic Dream thing, I mean, up close, the detail is incredible, alright? And it kind of mirrors that, almost, in a way, with the Crysis 3 campaign. I mean, there are times where I literally went up to Psycho's face, and this is all in-game. You can see all the DirectX 11 features. You can see little facial hairs, sticking out right here, just from having not shaved. You can see, his eyelashes all perfect, and how it comes from, inside his eye and out. It's some of the most highly detailed, and that attention to detail is just done so well, all right? And that's just, it's just gorgeous. They have tessellated vegetation, which you literally walk up to a leaf, you can see every single crevice and little spots, and all the textures and everything are just done so accurately. If you take a leaf from outside, it honestly looks that real. It's just incredible. I had the water. I had everything turned on high settings except the water. The water effects I had turned on very high. The reason I had this is because they developed this new water technology called water caustics. All right. And what it is they're actual real-time reflections on the environment depending on the ripple effects of the water. So Crysis 3 always has great, DirectX 11 tessellated water. When you step on it, you get that nice ripple effect, all right? But what happens is, when you have the setting on very high, not only do you get this ripple effect, but the sun, the actual light from the room, bounces off the water and onto the environment. So what ends up is you're walking along water, like you're walking in this tunnel, right? Like the sewers, for instance. You're walking in the sewers, ripples from the water are rippling, and you see some lights, and you can see like little flashes of strings following the waves and the ripples and everything like that in the environment in real time. And it's stuff like that, you're just like, oh, it's incredible. It really is. Crysis 3 is essentially the next generation of games early. That's how good this game looks. And I'm playing it on high settings, not even max settings, alright? And it just looks incredible. So this is like the next gen early game. So, I mean, you won't be able to see it on YouTube, but if you ever have a chance to see the game running at least high specs, in real life, like if your friend has it on PC or whatever, I mean, it's just incredible the amount of detail and the amount of pinpoint accuracy that everything's been molded to produce. So just excellent detail all around. Everything's, I mean, the CryEngine 3.5, I think it is, that they use, it's the most advanced and most highly detailed gaming engine to date. I mean, it's awesome. Alright, so moving on from graphics, gameplay. This is the biggest issue with Crysis 3. It's the fact that it feels repetitive, and the fact that even though you have this nice huge environment to explore and that's great, the game basically goes from fun down, 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 down. Alright? The fun diminishes so quickly, it's surprising. I couldn't play this game for more than 2 hours, maybe even an hour and a half. And you know, I love Crysis, I love this series, I'm a huge fan, I own all of them. And I just couldn't play this game for more than an hour and a half. I actually found Crysis 3 less fun to play than Crysis 2. I had more fun playing Crysis 2 than Crysis 3, and I was surprised by this because I'm like, wait, this is everything I wanted. These are open levels that are like the first Crysis. And this is, you know, fine, retuned gameplay. You got new stealth and new armor mechanics, and you can just approach it in any way you want. This is exactly what I wanted from Crysis. But something, I think it's just the fact that it plays so similarly to Crysis 2. Just the fun just diminishes quickly, and it's so sad to see that because Crysis is a quality series, but the fact that they chose to make it exactly like Crysis 2 in terms of gameplay, I mean, it just doesn't turn out to be that fun. They had side missions too. I did the majority of side missions. They brought side missions back from the first Crysis. So I did the majority of side missions, and I mean, a couple of them had, I would admit, a couple of them helped me out in battle. There was this one level where I went and helped out this squad of guys, and they said, all right, thanks for helping us out. We'll give you the control to our airstrike. And I was able to take 3 or 4 pingers. I was able to take all the pingers in the level, paint them with my, you know, my tracker, my visor, and they were able to airstrike and kill the pingers instantly. So side missions do have some incentive and definitely some benefits to your gameplay. So do them if you want. However, the big issue with side missions is that they don't tell you that they're available. It's not like the first Crysis where you can see on the map where you know your secondary objective is. You have to constantly pull your visor open to check if you have a side mission. It shows you exactly where to go for your primary mission, but it doesn't show you where to go for your secondary mission until you open up your visor and look around in the environment for your side mission. It's like the weirdest thing. It's like, don't you want people to do the side missions? There's this one level I completed where I didn't do 2 side missions because I didn't know I had side missions to do. The game never said, do any side missions. I was just supposed to expect that I know. I mean, I don't want to bring up the visor every 10 seconds, or every time I enter like a new room, and check around my environment to see if I have new side missions available, and that's not fun, you know? I wish that they would have just put it on your map, put it next to your, put it like you did with your primary objective. Have like a blue marker for your primary, like a gray or green marker for your secondary, just somewhere in the world, but they just didn't do that for some reason. But Crysis 3 just feels way too repetitive. Within 90 minutes, 90 minutes or higher, you're just bored. You're just really just bored of just playing it, and it's sad, you know, because this is more of a Crysis experience than I would say Crysis 2 was, but Crysis 3 just doesn't feel as fun. It just doesn't. You have this new Predator bow, which is fun to use, but it's not like enough to produce this whole new gameplay experience, you know? It's a nice addition, but it's not going to keep me interested to play it for like a long time. So, in terms of gameplay, very disappointing. It plays the same exact thing. I actually think the controls actually are less accurate in a way. They don't feel as refined. They don't feel as refined as the Crysis 2 controls were. They actually feel a little bit delayed, to be honest. They fixed the aiming in Crysis 3, but like you're jumping and you're crouching, it doesn't feel like it's refined like it was refined as Crysis 2. So, you know. Anyway, the campaign's also shorter. Crysis, the original Crysis was about 15 to 18 hours. Alright, a long-ass campaign. Crysis Warhead was about 6 to 8. Probably 6 hours, I would say. Crysis 2 was about 10 to 12 hours. Crysis 3 is about 8 to 10. Alright? And I was surprised when I beat it. I probably spent about 8 hours in the campaign, so expect about 8 hours, and that's me doing side missions too. So expect about 8 hours for a campaign. It's a really short Crysis game. It feels like it's over like that, you know? So really I'm surprised there, but I mean, whatever, they did what they did. Will this be the last Crysis? Does this provide a satisfying conclusion to the story? Yes. Yes, I can see this being the last Crysis game. Does it provide a satisfying conclusion? It provides a conclusion, but it's unsatisfying because you don't know what the hell's going on with the story. So, overall, is Crysis 3 a quality game? Absolutely. Crysis 3 features an action-packed campaign with a lot of set pieces. It features the openness of levels such as the first Crysis and really brings back those great memories. It features really fast-paced and vertical gameplay, but it's brought down by repetitiveness and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's kind of like a contradiction there. And then top of the line, best graphics of any game I've ever seen. All right, so I can recommend Crysis 2 definitely as a purchase, but wait till the price drops to about $40 because it wasn't worth $60. I liked Crysis. Actually, here's the order of which I like the Crysis games: Crysis Warhead, Crysis 2, and Crysis 3. The order in which the Crysis games came out is the order in which I liked them. Honestly, it's like progressively each Crysis game didn't do or didn't make me feel like I liked it more than the last one. It's funny, but nonetheless, you are going to get a quality game here. I just recommend a price drop before you go out and get it. And I'm going to give Crysis 3, excuse me, an 8.5. I think I gave Crysis 2 a 9. If I'm mistaken. I'm going to give Crysis 3 an 8.5 because it does bring back the openness of levels that I've wanted so much from the first Crysis. It does bring those back. However, the story is absolutely dismissed and the gameplay is way too repetitive and it feels like a letdown, more or less. It's like you got what you wanted, but it didn't really fulfill on everything that it was promised, unfortunately. So that's my review. 8.5 out of 10. Wait for a price drop for it. Let me know what you guys think. I'm in the process of getting some multiplayer footage out, so look out for that. And catch you guys later. Thanks for watching. Bye.